All right, good day and welcome to this series, Church History Simplified. From our previous videos, we've seen the era of early church fathers, of which we kicked off with Origen of Alexandria, and then in the last video, Cyprian of Carthage. And today we'll be focusing on Eusebius of Caesarea. Eusebius of Caesarea existed between 263 to 339 AD. 263 to 339 AD. He was a Christian historian, theologian, and bishop of Caesarea Maritima. He is often referred to as father of church history. So he was influential in the early Christian church and in keeping the early Christian history that he was called father of church history. So we're going to look at some of his works. He wrote on the ecclesiastical history. That's a comprehensive history of the church from the apostles to the reign of Constantine. He also wrote about the life of Constantine, a biography of the emperor Constantine. He wrote on the preparation for the gospel, a defense of Christianity against pagan critics. He also wrote in the demonstration of the gospel, a theological work on the person and work of Jesus Christ. So we saw here that in two of his works that he wrote about a man called Constantine, and you'll be like, who is this man or who is this Emperor Constantine? We've established that there was a lot of persecution in this early church, and those persecutions were geared by the emperors of Rome. Like we saw about the Dacian persecution and the Valerian persecution and many more. We saw that those people persecuted, or those emperors persecuted the Christian church. But a time came that a man, Constantine, rose and wanted to emerge the office of leadership as the emperor of Rome. And remember that we also established that Christianity was growing by day, though they were being persecuted. So there were a lot of Christians at Rome then. So this Constantine, being smart, met the Christians and said, if you guys will vote me into power or cast your vote for me, I will make Christianity the religion of Rome, and then I will stop all these persecutions. So the Christians thought it wise. Yeah, this guy, you're making sense, right? Yeah. So they thought it wise. They agreed and voted for him. And as God may have it, Constantine won. So he became the emperor of Rome. And what now happened? He made Christianity the religion of Rome, the official religion of Rome, or of Roman Empire. And then, of course, persecutions stopped or ceased. So that was it about this guy, Constantine. Some other historians will write that it was as if everyone became Christian or turned Christians overnight during the time of Constantine. Like everybody just believed, even pagans believed during the time of Constantine. How? Because now the Christians were given prominent offices in Rome. So for people to get to all these offices, just have to become a Christian. So they, I'm a Christian too. Me, I'm a Christian too. So everyone became a Christian just to have political offices or political appointments in Rome. So that was it about this guy, Constantine. And Eusebius, the historian, thought it wise to document this whole thing and also to write about the life of this man, Constantine, who was so influential in helping the church and stopping persecution of Christians. So he wrote about him. So Eusebius also developed the concept of apologetics. We've talked about apologetics from the former or previous videos. That has to do with defending the faith, defense of the faith, apologetics. So he also established the importance of historical research in understanding Christianity. He made it a priority that for you to understand Christianity, you need to know history. And that is why we are making this video, so that people can know their history, how Christianity started and where it is going and where we are right now. When people understand their history or where they are coming from, they tend to do better because they know, okay, this is where I'm coming from, this is how things where I'm coming from now. What should I do to improve the situation in the future? So history makes people balanced in their thinking. So this guy Eusebius thought it wise to make historical research important in understanding Christianity. He also helped shape the Christian canon of scripture. We've talked about canonization. We've mentioned it in our previous videos. That's the process of selecting the scriptures that will be, or selecting the writings that will be called the Holy Scripture. So he played a major role in that too. He also influenced the development of Christian theology and doctrine. Furthermore, in talking about his impact in keeping historical accounts or making historical accounts important in understanding Christianity. For example, the Bible or the Old Testament scriptures were written in an agrarian tradition, that's a tradition that upholds agriculture, either livestock or farming. So if you don't understand that culture or their tradition or tradition of the people that day, you might have difficulty, or you can even misinterpret the scripture in some of the things he said. That's why in some of the parables of Jesus, he will either use trees and planting and all of that to illustrate his teachings, because that was the culture of those days. And then you also see people fishing, that has to do with livestock so that was the lifestyle of people that day. So if you don't understand their lifestyle, their tradition and their culture, the history of those people, you will not be able to understand or interpret the scripture correctly. Also, as a Christian, if you don't understand your church history, how Christianity started, the progress in the age, and its current situation, you won't be able to just interpret some of the historical accounts, or you have problem understanding what Christianity is about. But if you know all of that, you'll be like, okay, yes, this is how Christianity was. Our fathers or our early church fathers, they suffered for this thing, they were even killed and all of that. So you will have more boldness to say that you are a Christian, because this is what we have believed, this is tradition. You won't be deceived by any heretical teaching or just those old wife fables. So you'll be more solid when you are talking about your religion or Christianity. So that was some of the impacts Eusebius made, making church research or church history or history a necessity in understanding Christianity. He also provided a detailed account of early Christian history, preserving valuable information about church development. He shaped the church understanding of its own history and identity. So when people understand their history, they will understand their identity. So they will be confident of who they are, because they understand where they are coming from. So he influenced later historians and theologians such as Jerome and Augustine. So while he was also doing his historical work, he made sure that he had influence, his lifestyle had influence in other people like Jerome and Augustine, who later, if you read about these guys, Jerome and Augustine, they were also good theologians and also historians or writers too. So he made a great impact in their life, or he influenced them positively. So in all these things we've seen about this guy, he also had some kind of limitations that people had problem with. They said he often relied on incomplete or biased sources. So they said he wasn't so apt to verify some of his sources, that he just took them just the way that the apostles handed it, that he didn't want to verify or be become too critical about them. So some people faulted him for that. They said he had the tendency to idealize early Christian leaders and events. Was a product of his time, reflecting the theological and political debates of early 4th century. So in that they said he idealized the early Christian leaders and events. You would ask, what does that mean? It says he portrayed early Christian leaders as more unified and heroic than they actually were. Ooh, like he presented these people as perfect people, like these apostolic fathers, they were perfect. He presented a more sanitized version of early Christian history, downplaying conflicts and controversies. We know that studying through this apostolic and post-apostolic era, we've seen that they did great works, but then there were also controversies. Yes, there were also conflicts, but then Eusebius didn't want to put all that, but he portrayed Christianity to be perfect. Remember, you don't blame him for that, because if you have faced the persecution that Christianity has faced, you won't want to portray Christianity as a controversial religion. So maybe that would have been maybe his reason for idealizing Christian events and leaders. Maybe it could be. He also emphasized the miraculous and extraordinary aspect of early Christian events while omitting or minimizing more mundane or negative details. We've talked about that. He created a sense of continuity and orthodoxy, implying that the early church was more unified and consistent in its beliefs and practices than it actually was. In summary, he just magnified early church leaders and the events that happen, like to be perfect, faultless kind of. So he didn't talk about the conflicts, but he talked more about their unity, and that was it. So he just magnified the whole thing. Okay, going on. About his education, Eusebius studied under the Christian scholar Pamphilus, who was also in Caesarea, and he was deeply influenced by Origen's teachings and writings. We've talked about the man Origen. So he also wrote about other historical works, wrote about apologetic treatises, biblical commentaries, and sermons. He was also a prolific writer with over 40 known works attributed to him. 40 known works attributed to him. This guy was really a prolific writer. He was great. So Eusebius supported the Orthodox view of the Trinity, affirming the divinity of Jesus Christ. He opposed Arianism. For the man Arian, that's a heresy that denied Jesus' divinity. So that was about the Arianism. They denied Jesus' divinity. So he opposed that heresy. He opposed the views of Origen on certain points, such as the pre-existence of soul. So he opposed Origen's view on the pre-existence of souls. So what is pre-existence of soul? So is kind of a theological and philosophical concept that suggests that the soul exists before its incarnation in the physical body. And this idea was actually debated among early Christian theologians, including Origen and Eusebius. So Origen believed in pre-existence of souls, suggesting that they existed as spiritual beings before their incarnation. He proposed that souls were created by God and existed in a state of bliss before falling into sin and being incarnated in the physical bodies. Of course, he didn't just have all these views. Something must have influenced Origen, and he was influenced by the philosopher Plato. So those were the pre-existence of soul. We are just platonic ideas, if I would So he drew all those inspirations from Plato. Plato was this philosophy that also had great influence, that his works had influence in shaping church history. If you read about the man, Plato, the philosopher, Plato. So he had influence in Origen's life. So, but Eusebius disagreed with Origen's view, arguing that this was not supported by the scripture. According to the scripture, pre-existence of soul is not justifiable. Eusebius believed that the soul was created by God at the moment of conception or birth, not before. So there was nothing like the souls existing in a bliss before incarnation. No. Rather, he believed that the soul was created by God at the moment of conception or birth, not before. Eusebius saw Origen's view as potentially leading to a diminished view of the incarnation and the importance of bodily existence. So it was just not another that concept that Origen had about the pre-existence of soul being influenced by Plato. It wasn't a Christian thing, and the scripture didn't support that. So Eusebius, the church historian, opposed that. So if you look at maybe his death as his martyrdom, though he was not a martyr, he was not a martyr, although he wrote about many early Christian martyrs in his works, particularly in his work Martyrs of Palestine. So he wrote a book called Martyrs of Palestine. He was not a martyr, yes, that has been established, but then he was also persecuted. So he suffered persecution and was exiled during the reign of Emperor Maximinus Dei. So that was around 308 to 313 AD. 308 to 313 Dei, Emperor Maximinus Dei exiled Eusebius. So also Eusebius mentioned about other martyrs: Ignatius of Antioch, Polycarpus Minor, Justin Martyr, Perpetua and Felicity, and Origen. So he wrote about those Christian martyrs, though he was not a martyr, but he just faced persecution and was exiled. So it is believed that this guy Eusebius of Caesarea died of natural causes. That would be maybe around, as assumed by some scholars, 339 or 340 AD, during the reign of Constantine. So the exact circumstances of his death are unknown, but it is believed to have been a peaceful death, possibly due to old age or illness. So this guy wasn't martyred like the other church fathers or the apostles we have seen, that some were beheaded, burnt in a stake, eaten by wild beasts. So this guy Eusebius, that wasn't his case. So it is believed that he died a natural death caused by illness or old age. So this is just a brief summary about the life of this guy Eusebius. He was a complex figure whose contributions to Christian historiography, theology, and apologetics continue to shape our understanding of early Christianity. So thank God for a guy like Eusebius. If not, we wouldn't have been talking about church history today. So we wouldn't have understood how it was like before our age. So it would just be maybe the account of the scripture, that maybe the missionary journeys in the book of Acts, and then that would have been the end. But thank God for a guy like Eusebius of Caesarea, who kept into account the church history, that we will have access to that even in our day. So This is where we draw the curtain for the life of Eusebius of Caesarea. Keep following. In the next video, we'll be talking about another man, another prominent historian, theologian, or church father by name Athanasius of Alexandria. Athanasius of Alexandria. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.